All right, welcome to FL Teams Live. You guys enjoy the Super Bowl? I know the city of Philadelphia did. Jeremiah, how are you on this fine evening?
I'm doing fantastic, man. I'm glad to be here. A little sad, a little Super Bowl hungover, right? I mean, football goes away for a minute, but the off season's already kicking in gear. But happy to be here. It was an odd feeling around this place where I'm at in Delaware on Monday. With the schools closed, half of them starting late, expecting that giant celebration of the Eagles, not to be.
I gotta say, they seemed really, Eagles fans in general, uh, they seemed a little overconfident going into the Super Bowl. I was a little confused as to why. I understand they had a great season and they played a great game. Frankly, it's no slight on the Eagles season.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems like they're legitimately stunned that they lost to a team that's gone to three Super Bowls in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
I mean, some people saw it coming, but it was it was a close game. And he may join us later, but we do have to. I sent a video out on the night of the Super Bowl. We can both vouch for this, and Isaac Edelman, the founder of FL Teams, told us how many times before the game, during the game, it's going to be 38-35 Chiefs. And
spot on.
Spot on. It looked a little hairy there for a while, but he nailed it. So kudos. Obviously, Isaac knows what he's talking about. I was wrong about the over under. A lot of points scored, but hey, look, I'm sitting here drinking with a buddy watching the game. We don't want to see in the Super Bowl. I'll be honest, in a regular game, I really love watching defense, but man, I don't know. Something about the Super Bowl, people who are more casual at your party, maybe watching it. I like to see the scoreboard lit up a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way that they did this too, right? I mean, it wasn't gigantic explosive plays. It was just two pretty efficient offenses. I mean, they were chunking the ball down the field. I mean, it was a really odd kind of game plan that went through it. I said the Eagles would hold on, but the one thing that I think held true with what we talked about during the preview is, I'd mentioned how Philadelphia had come out on some teams and just knocked them out early, right? They just took the big swing and nobody answered. And if you recall, that's where it was. I said, KC is a team that can answer. And they did. Yep. Kansas City just played 4 full quarters of football, right? All the way through this and won a war of attrition. And, it really was a good game. I think there were a lot of different little storylines and things that popped up in between it all. Never saw Kansas City having more rushing yards than Philly. I did not see that coming.
Pacheco, another guy Isaac was high about going into the game. He left for a brief time, I think, in the fourth quarter with an injury, but he took over the game, honestly. After Mahomes, right before halftime, remember, he I guess it was not a sack, it was a rush. The Eagles, 0 sacks, by the way, which is obviously what we all predicted.
Right, obviously.
Mahomes scrambling. I immediately, by the way, am screaming, get down, get down. He gets tackled around the ankle. Nothing, completely clean and legal play. And he gets up in immense pain and hobbles off, and it did not look good. At that point, the Chiefs were down. I think they were down 10 already at that point. Or maybe they were about to go down 10. Things did not look good for the Chiefs going into Rihanna's halftime show. It looked bleak. But I think you nailed it. The Chiefs could survive that knockout punch because they've been there. They've done that.
They just kept grinding. It was funny at the party I was at, a good friend of mine who's a nurse has been in the ER and all the other stuff. When Mahomes is hobbling like that, I'm looking up at the clock and I see it's about halftime. I'm like, hey, Melissa, what are the chances you think Patrick's ankle feels good in the third quarter? She was like, I would say that he probably won't feel it in the third quarter. I'm like, yeah. Like there had to be some assistance I think there was probably more than tape going on, but he looked good. It looked unaffected in the entire second half.
Yeah, and he had a big run. And we were talking on you, Isaac, and myself during the game. And I think I remember a message. I'm pretty sure I was, feeling pretty good at that point in the game. But we were discussing who's going to win MVP. At this point, we don't even know who's going to win. It was a tie game. Mahomes took off for his long run, and I said, yeah, Mahomes just locked it up.
Yeah.
That run did it. Because he didn't have the passing yards.
No, I mean, again, when you're looking at the way that this broke down, you're talking about passing yards. The Eagles had 300 yards passing compared to only 182 from the Chiefs. That's a complete flip of the script. And, 115 rushing yards to the 158 from the Chiefs. And it was weird because I felt like the Chiefs, again, were methodical, and that was more their MO this year. But without the Tyreek, without that, it was Juju underneath. It's Kelsey. It's the running backs. But it felt like Philly in the first half had possession the entire first half. They were the ones grinding and driving. So I didn't expect to see at the end of this, total yards. I guess actually with the 300, though, Philly had 400 yards. I mean, that's a lot of offense. But it's funny, you remember Steve, when we were talking about it too during the preview, mentioned like how Andy Reid used to love passing and passing's in Philly's DNA. I felt like Philly went to that way too soon. And on the flip side, Andy Reid was willing to diversify.
Yeah. Down the stretch, the run game is really what did it. And some of that pre-snap motion that they got from Doug Peterson's Jaguars game film against against the Eagles earlier in this season. It was, and give some credit to the damn Chiefs defense too. They did score a touchdown in the first half, which without that, I don't think we're talking about this game the way we are.
Right.
Second half, they only allowed 2 scoring drives, 11 points. They were not perfect, but they took a step forward. One could argue they maybe should have had another touchdown on defense. One thing we know for sure is that no one in the universe, especially anyone associated with the National Football League, knows what a catch is. Nope. It's how is the NFL not embarrassed with it being so ambiguous? And I think I told you guys. Now, I thought Goddard's catch that was reviewed was incomplete, but I could see he did. That one I think was clear. The other two, I would have said they were both completions. Devontae Smith and Miles Sanders on his fumble. Mm-hmm. They just make it so hard to enjoy a football game. And I guess we've got to talk about Bradbury's holding because it let the Chiefs drain, the last bit off the clock before kicking the game-winning field goal. No guarantee the Eagles would have won if they had a minute and 30 or whatever, but they would have had the ball and a chance and only a field goal to tie it and send it in overtime. So certainly would have been more interesting. Bradbury admitted it was a hold after the game, which I give him utmost credit for. Juju Smith-Schuster with a nasty Valentine's Day message to him, which I thought was a little unnecessary. Yeah. But I think we might disagree on this. My stance is firmly in it's a penalty. It's a penalty. It shot the wind out of my sails. And I was rooting for the Chiefs, and I was still like, oh, I hate that. And, but, there's nothing in the rule book about time on the clock or what quarter, what a penalty is. There are penalties all 60 minutes. A penalty is a penalty.
So I think what I had to wrap my head around is when I initially saw it, the first thing that I think is that's not a catchable ball, right? But I had to train my head because that only matters if we're talking pass interference. Because that hold happened before the ball was even thrown. It was a hold either way, right? So, I mean, the hold was the hold before we knew the outcome. So you can't not throw the flag. I get it. I'm not going to fault Bradbury at all. I actually think it's awesome that he stepped up to say it. Like, yeah, I grabbed him because you know what? Here's the thing: you never know. And in the Super Bowl, you know, you make a play. Now, I am of the guys of, as a referee, I get it. And you're right, Jeff. It should be a penalty is a penalty. Penalty doesn't matter. Teams, game, time, clock, whatever. You just feel like in the Super Bowl, you just let them play it a little bit. You know, maybe you don't tighten it up so much. But I mean, look, the call was the call. It was a hold. There's no way around that. It's just that's a rough way to have it. You know, kind of come in. You know. That
on a third down in
right.
that
time frame, that drive, it's everything. But you know, and I'll go back to the catch thing you were talking about. I think the NFL has paralyzed. What do they call, like, paralyzation by analyzation? Right? Used to be pretty simple, right? Did you grab it? Did the feet touch? That's a catch. Now there's all these other factors that come into play because they're so afraid of getting one right or wrong. Here's the thing. We're talking about that hold here, but I think you feel the same way. We've talked about this in football. In the flow of the game, you can say one call made or break it, but that's really close-minded because if you're in a position where one call changes that outcome of that game, you're not looking at the other opportunities you had. Right? Philly's not paying attention to not completing the drive, right? If you complete the drive and you're up, then you're already up by the 3, and it doesn't matter if the field goal goes, right? I mean, so I just think the human element of error has to just be allowed for it. It happens. It's hard to come back sometimes and just say, oh, well, they cost us that. Like, no, not really. What cost you was your offense died in the second half.
Yeah.
What cost you, right? And the defense couldn't stop anybody. I mean, that's what happened. But yeah, I think they overanalyze this so much. I'll tell you the play I love, man, and I think I know where you'd be on this too. Is I saw some meme going around, or maybe it was something on Facebook, whatever. Jerick McKinnon, when he takes the ball around the side, and I wish I could quote it eloquently enough, but the gist of it was this picture should be in every high school weight room, locker room in the nation, because what Jerick McKinnon did is he broke that corner. They were going to let him score. Do you know how many times, like, as a kid, before you first strap on a helmet, you dream of scoring a touchdown in the Super Bowl? That is your moment. You tell your kids, your grandkids, grandkids. It's forever a legend. Your dad scored a Super Bowl, whatever, great granddad. And instead of being wrapped personally in that moment, McKinnon did what he should have done, slid down to the knee, and took the clock down to where it needed to be to ensure that the team won. And yeah, people say, oh, that's just football. But I'm telling you, man, that there's more credit should be given to that than probably it will be.
It's hard to do. No, I mean, your instincts your entire life. You get around that edge, you put it in. You drive towards that pylon. So you really have to go against your nature to do that. And look, one of the Walter Payton was in one Super Bowl in his career, and he didn't score a touchdown, and he was angry that they give a gimmick player, the refrigerator Perry, goal line carry instead of him, and he held it against Ditka for for a while.
Look, you want to talk? Everybody has their origin story. How did I become a Dolphin fan? You just told my origin story. I really was. I mean, I was born in 78. So the 85 Bears, I'm 7-8 years old when I'm starting to first get into this, and the Super Bowl shuffle. And I was all about the Bears and McMahon and Peyton, and seeing that fallout at that young of an age turned me against the Bears because I was such a huge Walter Payton fan, where I was as a fan, like, how do you not let Walter Payton score in the Super Bowl? And next year I see Danny Boy and the Marx Brothers, and misery has ensued. Not that it would have been any better if I was a Chicago Bears fan. If I was a Bears fan, it would have still been miserable. So,
Yeah. Yeah, that's it's a lose-lose. There's no winning.
No, there's no win in Mudville.
I mean, you could always be a Jets fan.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of, hey, look, all the Florida teams off seasons have already started. The offseason is among us. I mean, obviously, from a Tampa Bay perspective, the Bucs looking here, the big storyline is Tom Brady's retired. He's officially done. He's turned in his papers and everything. He's not coming back. I really don't think he is this time. They have one quarterback, Kyle Trask, under contract. They have a top 20 first-round pick, but, another Florida quarterback I'm seeing mocked to the Bucs a lot. He's going to be a bust, but we'll talk about that as we get closer to the draft. But quarterbacks is the storyline. There's obviously Derek Carr was released by the Raiders. Aaron Rodgers is in his 4 days of darkness retreat.
That guy.
Baker Mayfield's out there. Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be on the market. There's rumors that Justin Fields might be traded by the Bears. I mean,
boy, that
will set off so they have the number 1 pick. I mean, I could understand them saying if we really like this rookie better than Fields, they could probably trade him to the Texans and get the number 2 pick.
Probably.
So I mean, if I were the Texans, I'd give up 2, especially knowing that they have 12. Anyways, you got Fields, you got Rodgers, you got Carr, then you take a step down, and you don't even know if 2 of those 3 guys are available. You got Garoppolo, you got Mayfield, you've got the entire NFC South who needs quarterbacks, including the Bucs, of course. You got the Jets, who are the only other team other than the Saints that asked about Derek Carr, allegedly. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like last year. We were just sitting back watching the quarterback dominoes fall, and I feel like we're going to be doing the same thing this offseason of, who's are the Bucs? They're over the salary cap. They got a lot of aging players. Are they just going to roll it back, trade some veterans, let them walk in free agency and go with young? Are they going to try to stay competitive in a weak division and get Derek Carr? Or if Aaron Rodgers becomes available, is Aaron Rodgers going to want to play in? I'm just thinking of him personally. His personality, doesn't really seem like he'd love it in New York. I think Florida would much more suit his personality, frankly. Yep. And I'm sure he wouldn't mind playing a full season in warm weather. Just a hunch.
Just one time, right?
Yeah, right? I mean,
the rumbling on the quarterback thing, again, I'm in Delaware. From, the news I hear just south of me down 95 is they're not sure that Lamar's going to be back in Baltimore. Right. Lamar is pushing for a lot of money, and Baltimore very much is looking under the microscope of how they did with Hundley, what they did with Lamar. Not saying Hundley's better than Lamar now, but, that's a lot there.
It's 2 years in a row that Jackson, who, I should have mentioned, he's the best at all those quarterbacks. I mean, Rodgers just had a better career, but he's getting up there. Right. But he's missed significant amount of time the last 2 years with injury, and that's kind of his style of play. I mean, that's what you want with Lamar Jackson, as a guy who will run the ball, make plays. And I've heard the Ravens are going to franchise tag him, assuming they can't get an extension done. But that doesn't mean they're not going to turn and trade him.
Right.
And who has that kind of, that's another, what are they going to possibly ask for him? We've also seen players kind of bully their way. And I don't say that begrudgingly, but like Devontae Adams said, I'm playing for the Raiders. You're trading me there. And they only got a late first round pick from the Raiders for Devontae Adams, who, considering, Tyreek's price and everything else, I think the Raiders got out pretty good in that exchange, but the Packers didn't have a choice. They had to take what they could get because he said, that's where I'm playing.
Well, we're looking at in Vegas, right? Let's stay on that Vegas thing. Derek Carr essentially just made his power move, right? Vegas basically said, we're willing to let you go seek a trade. Go whoever you want to get traded to. We'll let you do that, Derek. And he came back and just kind of said, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to accept any trade.
Yeah.
And so they cut him. I mean, they had no choice. What are you going to
They
do?
had
He's
to.
telling you, I have no trade clause. I'm not going to accept any of them. So cut me or pay me to be on the bench. And he knew, calling that bluff, they weren't paying him to be on the bench.
Right.
So he gets now to have free reign on where he's at. I'm wondering, though, man, you're seeing more of this stuff come into play. There never used to be the no trade clause, and then the no trade clause kind of became more and more. And then I'm wondering how the front offices are going to start approaching that, because, I don't think they envisioned this becoming the power move that it's done in certain situations.
Yeah. It's, part of me thinks it's nice that the players get to control a lot more of where they play and, where they want to be. It's, I don't like the only hesitation I have is I can't watch NBA basketball, because what that sport turned into was we're gonna all, and really the Bucks and the Rams kind of done that. The past two champions were the first time in the NFL it actually worked, where you just built a mercenary team. They have some of their draft picks, sure, but they go out and they get the big old veteran receiver, tight end, quarterback.
Yep.
Spend all of your draft capital, all of your free agent money. Get guys like Leonard Fournette, who signed an under market deal initially to play for the Bucks because he wanted to be with Brady. Guy like Gronk, and the Rams did that same thing, and they knew they had the one shot, and if all these old guys could stay healthy, they'd be a little less good, but they could go at it again this year, and that didn't work out. A lot of it was health reasons. And also losing Beckham and Von Miller and Whitworth. Yeah, they lost a few pieces.
Yeah, just
a little bit. So I don't want it to become like that. As much as everyone loves the players who take less money to win. However, if it becomes a league-wide thing, it's going to be, I don't know. You're never going to see New Orleans. You're never going to see, Kansas City. I don't think you're going to see the New York teams, the LA teams, the big market teams get kind of an advantage like they have in the NBA, because it's, that's kind of so I don't want it to go that far, but I do like that the players do have a say, a little bit at least, in the good players. Let's face it, it's the good ones.
Right. Now, also with your offseason storylines, okay, so we think quarterbacks. Here's another big one coming dead after the Super Bowl. Philadelphia loses both coordinators, right? Both coordinators leave to take head coaching jobs, right? Both got head coaching. So both of them are moved on to become head coaches. And there's a lot of free agency in Philly in what they did, because Philly did a lot of this plug on the defense, especially with the Sues and the other guys to get a one piece in. So it's going to be interesting to see how that rolls out too. I mean, that's a lot of unusual stuff there. And I think I know I shared it with you and Isaac, but it was driving me crazy as a Dolphins fan that, Vic Fangio announced weeks ago that he was, the report was out, he's taking the Dolphins defensive coordinator job. And then they're like, why hasn't he signed? Why hasn't he signed? Why does he sign? And then Sean Payton's going to get him and all this. To hear that he had signed a 2-week contract, literally a 2-week contract with Philadelphia to consult with their defense and Gannon prior to the Super Bowl. I wonder how many of those things go on underneath shit that we never hear about, or is this a first?
I think I've heard of, I want to say, like, when Josh McDaniels got fired in Denver, he then signed on in the playoffs to help the Patriots, and obviously he then joined the staff. I think it's stranger that Fangio was literally going to another organization. He was not accepting an advisory role with Philly to become their next defensive coordinator. Although I would bet when Dolphins fans heard that Gannon got the job in Arizona, that they were like, wait, Fangio's still coming, right? Which I
You're right.
Right.
Well, I mean, and I ain't gonna hang all this shit on Fangio. He's got a lot of tape and a lot of goodwill behind him, but
didn't work out.
I didn't like what I saw in the second half. I'm just saying, I mean, Juju and the boys were dicing him underneath, man. It was those little outs, man. Again, Smith-Schuster 7 catches. That's pretty big. I mean,
you
right on par
called
with
a good
Kelsey
day from him.
Yeah.
It was a yeah, the Eagles have a lot of holes. I mean, the two coordinators obviously is big. But yeah, the Chauncey Gardner Johnson guy we were talking about, I'm pretty sure Bradbury's a free agent as
Mhm.
well. A few guys on that D line are gone. Jason Kelsey's even a free agent. You know,
Yeah.
and I believe they just drafted pretty high up a rookie to a rookie center that
Yeah.
I think Kelsey had a say in drafting. Actually, like he really liked him. Um, so yeah, it fit. Man, I think the NFC is going to be wide ass open again next year because well, we don't know what San Francisco is doing at quarterback. The year they had defensively is going to be hard to duplicate that. It just
Yeah.
it is. The
And what are
Eagles,
the chances you get a healthy McCaffrey 2 years in a row?
yeah,
I
right.
mean, I love the guy. I loved him at Stanford. I love everything about Christian McCaffrey. But what are the chances you get 2 seasons in a row without him hurt? About the
No,
same chances you get 2 Shaquan Barkley years back to back. Ain't gonna happen.
yeah, now that'll be another one to watch. Yeah, it's an
Yeah.
interesting. There's a lot of stuff. I mean, there always is. The
The
free
quarterback
agency starts
carousel.
soon, and
I think your Saints, man, are it's a destination I'd like to be a part of if I'm a quarterback. The young receivers that you added last year, Kamara, having that already in the backfield, the tight end that was coming on really strong near the end of the year. There's a
Deshaun
lot of
Johnson.
weapons in New Orleans that a good quarterback can do a lot of stuff with. I mean, the red rifle came in and Andy Dalton made they were putting up points in some of those games. You put a Derek Carr behind that line and line that up, and it could be very interesting what could happen. I
Yeah,
know I'm backtracking. You talked about Tampa. I could see Tampa just doing a Jimmy Garoppolo thing. 1 year, plug it in. Let's grind through this thing and maybe see what they got in Kyle Trask.
it's
I don't know.
it's it's got to be hard in the NFC South more than any other division. Figuring out because it's just the Panthers have a good defense. The Saints have a top 5 defense. Um, the Saints probably have the best offensive line in the group. The Bucks, I think they're going to be moving on from Donovan Smith at left tackle, so they're going to have some stuff in
Carolina's
flux.
O line got better as the season went on. They started running the ball pretty well.
Yeah, and
But
they got DJ Moore. The Falcons really have nothing, but they might have Desmond. But overall, if one of those 4 teams adds Rodgers, Jackson, even Derek Carr,
mhm,
I think they automatically are the number one. They're the team everyone's going to predict, assuming only one of those team adds one of those 3 names.
sure.
Yeah, now if Aaron Rodgers goes to Tampa and Lamar Jackson goes to Carolina and Carr goes to the Saints, all of a sudden the NFC South is going to be like we were talking about the AFC West last offseason. Whoa,
Right.
it's going to go crazy. Look at these powerhouses. And
Speaking of
Carolina's got a
crazy, I think my dog got in a catnip. Sorry about that. He's like running like a madman. It sounds like the house is tearing down.
he's just excited about the NFC South. And the last thing before we move into our Super Bowl prop bet review, I'm very curious what the Dolphins. I mean, they say Tua's cleared concussion protocol. I have to imagine they're investing heavily in a backup quarterback. Um, you know, Baker Mayfield, is he willing to sign on as a number 2? I'm curious what route the Dolphins go. But that's one of those under the radar. I mean, look, Andy Dalton, Jameis Winston, you could have worse backups. I did say a couple weeks ago, Jameis Winston out there dropping bombs to Tyreek and Waddle. That's an intriguing, he's not going to have the short space accuracy that Tua has underneath. But I mean, I just tell the guy, launch the ball down the field and let our guys run.
I think what you got to look at is the last 2 backups to Tua. I think we've tried too hard to find someone that's in the mold of what Tua is. We thought maybe Brissett could do something with that so you could run a similar offense. This year, Teddy Bridgewater, I think nobody really knew what you were going to get with Teddy, but he was similar. I think there's enough talent on the Dolphins offense now that you need a gunslinger as a backup. right? Count on Tua to run your offense, count on Tua to do that. But if he gets hurt, just count on a guy who can come out and give you a chance to win. You don't need a game manager back there anymore, right? Tua can game manage plus some. If you lose your starting quarterback, we need a guy who can say, okay, the offensive game plan's all to hell. I'm just going to find Tyreek and Jalen, such as Jameis Winston or Baker Mayfield, right? That can come in and just give you a puncher's chance as opposed to a guy. And I may be alone in this in the Dolphin world, but I really hope, again, that we do stick with Skylar Thompson, because I wasn't unimpressed with Skylar. I mean, for a rookie that late, I mean, yeah, no Brock Purdy, I get all that, but Skylar handled himself with a ton of class and dignity, and you could see him grow and have some leadership skills. Having him on that depth chart's not going to hurt my feelings. I hope we can hold on to him before he ends up being a Chad Henne for somebody else,
Yeah, Chad Henne, another Super Bowl ring.
I know, man, that guy. So it is going to be interesting to see, but with the Dolphins, yeah, you can't count on Tua. You don't give him the 5th-year option. This is earn it to be what it is. So it's definitely going to be an interesting sort of offseason, because we've blown all our draft capital through trades, so we can't
tampering
draft. Yeah, and tampering. Yeah.
The Saints have the Dolphins first 49ers that they got from Denver. And if they don't get a quarterback, that pick might be Green Bay's for Aaron Rodgers by all time things are said and done. There's another warm weather climate. You won't have to deal with a lot of the media pressures that you get in New York.
Yeah, and he seems like the kind of dude who could appreciate New Orleans.
Seems like the type.
Psychedelic, yes. The meditation, I wouldn't see Aaron Rodgers being opposed to voodoo, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, or the Tampa nightlife might interest him. I don't. It seems like it would be such a media circus going to the Jets. And look, I'm curious Derek Carr has more power right now than anyone, because he could be the first domino, or he could sit out and let Aaron Rodgers be the first. I think money-wise, I'd be trying to pound the pavement now, because if Aaron Rodgers comes out and says he's sticking with the Packers, I guess his market would inflate. But if he, if a week from now Rodgers says, I want to be traded, all of a sudden Carr goes to number 2 on everybody's list.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know. It's an interesting circus we're going to have going on.
I wonder if in Aaron Rodgers, fortress of solitude that he's experiencing as we speak, if in his mind the thought ever goes through, don't be Brett Favre. Don't be Brett Favre. Why are you going to go to New York just like Favre with the I can't imagine that that's a comfortable setting that he'd want to go into. Yeah,
it doesn't make sense to me. And my thing with Rodgers is if he comes out and says, man, I just can't play in these frigid temperatures. We're falling short every year in the playoffs, the end of the season, and I don't like being this cold, So I just want to play someplace it's not going to snow. I don't think Packers fans necessarily will hate him as much as if he just says, I want to go to the big market, or I want to just, blow this tiny little place. But yeah, man, I can't imagine I don't think he'd be popular with the New York media unless he wins a lot. Otherwise, I don't think the New York media is going to like some of his views on life and things of that ilk. I said ilk, not elk, but he probably likes elk too, I imagine.
Yeah, and as we run through, it is something to, if Rodgers, if Rodgers ends up out of Green Bay, that is a franchise that's very much not in the quarterback situation they thought they would be in. I don't think anybody in that organization or anybody in the NFL now thinks that Jordan Love is going to be the next. I don't see it. So if Rodgers is gone, I don't think Jordan Love just plugs in. I could be wrong, but
I'd be
think he's gotta go
curious
with
because
somebody.
the Packers are not big time free agency guys, you know.
Yeah,
So, and now they'll also be getting draft compensation of some
yeah,
sort for Rodgers. I
yeah.
would assume at least a first round pick.
Yeah.
Um,
That
so
they'll spend on a D lineman and a safety.
maybe, yeah. And look, if
No.
Rodgers wants to come back, I
Mm.
mean, Jordan Love's got to be getting a little antsy back there. Like,
Yeah.
I want my shot. Like, you
And
know,
Trey Lance. I mean, you got Trey Lance is in the same boat because nobody saw, Brock rolling out the way he did. Purdy. I mean, I know he's going to be injured going into the season,
yeah.
but it was a foregone conclusion that Trey Lance was your guy. So there's a lot of interesting young draft picks floating around out there that maybe a change of scenery helps, or we see what happens. But again, it's going to be a quarterback dominated, off season.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you'll hear a lot about that from the FL Teams group over here.
We'll be doing a quarterback carousel episode. I guarantee it.
I
We were
guarantee
coaching
it.
last offseason.
Yeah, and so with that being said, I know how much everyone dies for the wit and wisdom that is FL Teams. It's time for the reveal, Jeff. How did we fare on the props?
All right. Well, I'm going to preface this with a couple of things. We next year, I think when we put this together, we will have specific betting amounts for different things. Meaning,
Like
we had some bets that, I went through and I just said we're doing 100 units for every bet. We both were on a couple of bets that were like minus 1,900. I didn't even calculate the pennies that you would have received back on that. So we both did get shorted a little bit. I'll preface it with that. Our numbers were a little better than what I did. I also miscalculated another one I cheated us both. It was another one we both got right, and I cheated us. So the final total is what it is, but we are better than what the final total was. And obviously, look, in real life, we're not betting 100 units on a coin toss and 100 units on every MVP long shot that we take.
right.
So the numbers are not necessarily fair, but with the flawed methodology, I will say you won more of your bets than I did. However, you finished 100 on everything. You finished negative 144 on the day.
Still take the red. Damn.
So just barely. And
yeah.
I finished up 338.
Woo!
So I will tell you our biggest, our biggest wins and losses here. You got off really well in the category of, if I can get there, in the category of who would lead the game in receiving yards.
Mm-hmm.
You picked Devontae Smith, if I'm.
Yep.
And he did in fact lead. I picked, and then you took a long shot bet on Hardwell.
Yep.
So you got plus 500 for Smith. You lost 100 for Hardwell. I was negative. I was down 300 because I spread my bets on three different receivers: Kelsey, Brown, and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Obviously, we're not betting as much on that as we are on the point spread.
Sure.
But for sake of the flawed methodology, that was your biggest win, especially head to head with me. I had two big ones come through. My second biggest one was that the first drive would have a play of 20 plus yards and a touchdown. The Eagles got the ball first, had a play of over 20 yards to Devontae Smith, and scored a touchdown. So that was a plus 400. So it's a nice little return there. And then the big one I got plus 575. So that's 5.75 times your bet, is a comeback win from a double-digit deficit. The Chiefs coming back. That was the difference. If the Chiefs did not, if they were down 9 points, or if they didn't win the game, you would have won walking away. Instead, that late bet comes through for me.
Nice.
So that is where the victory came through. But overall, look, if we weighted our bets realistically, I think we both actually would have walked away with a decent chunk of money. Because again, we're not betting 100 units on Noah Gray scoring a touchdown. I cringed when I cringed when I saw that for two reasons. One, I'm like, man, I would have broke the whole game if Noah Gray scored a touchdown, because I would have blown you out of the water, because there was nothing you could do to catch me. And on the other side, it's like, yeah, that's the thing. You put one unit on, not 100, and you're still happy if you get your 2,000 to one hit or 200 to one hit.
Absolutely.
But you put one on that, not 100 in real life.
Not 100.
So yeah, and our MVP long shots, I actually think I let us keep 100 on our super ultra long shots, because I'm like, yeah, we're not, nobody's betting 100 on every player on the board.
Right, can't happen.
Yeah, so it wasn't a perfect system, but I did win, and really also mainly because the Chiefs beat the Eagles. I think there were at least 300 points that flip-flopped in that one side to the other. So it's an overall 600 difference. So if the Eagles had won, you definitely would have won our prop bets. But Fly Eagles failed.
And I really thought – so real quick, because I talked about this at the Super Bowl party I was at, and I think we may have mentioned on one of the shows, but I guess, and I'm maybe answering the question possibly, but not the halftime props, what song they're going to start with, how many songs will be played, all of that. Do sports books cap the amount of money you can put on that? They have to, right? There's got to be a cap, because that's just too easily.
Yeah. That's easily, what we were talking about that Saturday. It was probably me you were talking to about it.
It probably was. That's what I was saying when we were doing this. I mean, they got to cap it, though, right? I mean, there's got to.
Because otherwise, I don't know.
To protect themselves.
Yeah, I don't know why every backup dancer for Rihanna is not a billionaire now.
Right. So you got to have there's got to be something on that. One of my buddies who used to do the Super Bowl in Vegas every year, I think he was telling me that they cap it. So they give you, you can only maybe bet 500 or something, or something like that. Because, I mean, the whole set, somebody in the extended family can easily just, you can retire with millions.
Yeah. Especially if you parlay a bunch of things. I mean,
you don't need a house and parlay what's going to open and how many songs there's going to be.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And if she changes it, boy.
Not good.
Yeah. That would not end well. Now we did talk about Jeremiah
I'm waiting
punishment.
Yes.
I think I'm giving you an easy one, and I'm going to tell you right now. So you have until next Wednesday or maybe Thursday. I might need to do Thursday next week.
Okay.
But to prepare, because you're going to have to do something. And I think I'm being very generous, giving you the week instead of springing it on you now, because
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I think it's only fair. So I thought, again, I wanted to take it easy because it was just the two of us. We both did pretty well. So I'm going to make it easy, and you're going to do a performance for us.
Oh, yay.
And I assume you're familiar with Miss Celine Dion.
Oh, yes, I am.
You know what song I'm going to say.
Oh, no. Really? I don't have to stand on the front of the Titanic and say I'm the king of the world, do I?
No. You just need to sing "My Heart Will Go On." We'll provide the music and the words, but you have a full week. And I would say what's best is, obviously, you need to let everyone on TikTok know that you will be performing live on
I will own this. I will own this. That's perfectly fine. I won't do any justice to it, but I'll take that because, dude, look, I love it.
Isaac's too young. He doesn't know the song.
No. Yeah, it's not going to be good. So this should be great, though, man. That's awesome. Look, I'm in for it. I like these sort of things where we do this and we'll play it off. We need to keep these rolling. So I thank you for being generous enough to give me a week. That is fantastic.
I thought that was
studio time.
Yeah. Give you some time, get a little more comfortable with the lyrics, refamiliarize yourself with the emotions.
Find some props. Right. Find the moment.
Sure. Yeah. And we'll do it live. NFL Teams Live. And it will be recorded. I'll say that.
Let's do this.
So
I love it. It's fitting. I will take my punishment like a man who has to sing Celine Dion.
Yeah. And look, I told Isaac, I said, look, this song, it's a great singer might not be able to pull off this song. So I don't know. You could have came back today and said, I'm a trained professional singer in my younger days, and I still am going to blow this song because it is not a song for there's probably a handful of people who can do that song justice to begin with.
I am a drunken karaoke singer who will have his liquid courage prior. But Celine, I am not. This should be entertaining, man. This will be good.
Yes, I will have my popcorn ready.
Get it done. That's fantastic, man.
Yeah. So make sure you subscribe and also spread the news about the live performance. You don't get this kind of live audience performance like this nearly enough, especially not for free like we're going to provide. So make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube and like us on all the social medias, so you can tune in. And I want to see the comments blow up as the song goes. We'll
get it semi-viral. We'll get it semi-viral.
Make it the close of next week, or would you prefer?
Yeah, definitely the close. The close. It's good.
Yeah,
it's
you'd have a hard time staying on.
Yeah, because once I'm done, I'm out. Right. Hey,
and I will be mute while you're singing. By the way,
look. So I know we're getting ready to wrap it up. I want to throw something out there, man, and it was a big deal to me. And you see tonight, I kind of sported it and wore it. Finally, the NFL Hall of Fame is recognizing Zach Thomas. In my opinion, it was hands down the biggest travesty in the Hall of Fame right now was that Zach Thomas didn't have a bust in Canton. Huge. And you shared with me with Patrick Willis, right?
Yeah.
I will forever be a fan of a guy who understands it and puts that together. But if I could be in Canton this year, I'd love to do it to see Zach go in. But for me as a Dolphin fan, and a lot of us every year who have become very accustomed to rallying the troops around it, we finally got in Zach Thomas. For look, anyone who's not in my age range and you're a football fan, you don't need to be a Dolphin fan. Watch some tape of Zach Thomas. Just watch how this guy who was supposedly too slow, too small, not strong enough, all of those things coming out of college, and watch how preparation, watch how hard work, watch how discipline creates the monster that this guy was. And I think should be a model of what football strives to be. Not the most physically gifted guy in the world, but mentally overcame those things to become as physically gifted and look at that. So just an outstanding guy all the way around, great humanitarian in the Miami community, outstanding middle linebacker. So I'm finally glad to see that we're going to see that this year.
Yeah, me as well. And while we're on the topic, shout out to Rondé Barber, another. Maybe the Bucs and Dolphins might be in the Hall of Fame game next year. They usually try to get guys with ties to the game. So
that'd be great.
Yeah, maybe that'll motivate you more to get to Canton.
Yeah, it's not that long a drive from here.
No, it's much further from where I am. But yes, absolutely. Congratulations to all of the Hall of Famers, and well-deserved Zach Thomas finally busting through. All right, everyone, come back next week for a live performance. For Jeremiah Hensley, I'm Jeff Macolino. Thanks for watching FL Teams.
Next week.